Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Good afternoon. This is Militia Man and Crew, and I just want to welcome in a guest, or I'm proud to have as a sponsor, Collin Plume, the CEO and president of Noble Gold Investments. .com. So I welcome you. How are you, Collin?
Hey, I'm good. How you doing today? Glad it worked out.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, everything's good on my end.
Okay.
Yeah, pleasure to have you.
Good. Welcome to nice to be here. Yeah, excited to jump into hard metals and the economy and things that are happening.
Yeah, I happen to just a little bit of history. I did do a little bit of mining in gold, and I was familiar with gold prior to when it was around $400, and I was thought to be kind of crazy about that time. And look where it is today. I think you know full well what's been happening, and that's what we're going to have a little talk about, I guess, today.
Yeah, wow. What kind of gold mining did you do?
It was hard rock mining, and it was here in the Northwest. I worked for a company called was Meridian Gold at one point in time, and then they changed names, but the mine was called Bear Track Gold Mine, and it was an experience. They built it from raw scratch, pioneered into the woods and dug it out, and I was there for a few years. So yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, that was great. Back in 1994, so it's been a long time. Yeah, but yeah. So I was just wanting to have a good conversation. I looked up some of these some articles, and this one caught my eye. Was precious metals explosion. Platinum surges 28%, the strongest monthly gains in decades.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, you being someone that did some mining, I'm sure you saw firsthand, how difficult it is to mine any metal.
Well, absolutely.
How long it takes, the equipment, just the absolute determination that it takes to find any of these metals. There's a reason why there's so many reality shows around gold mining and mining in general. It's a very difficult business to be in, very cutthroat business.
Yeah.
And platinum has, seen the price has seen the benefit of how difficult it is to mine. And what I mean by that is it's, platinum's been on a downward spiral for the last 7 to 10 years. Used to be 1-to-1 with gold price.
Right.
And it's really had a rough go about it for a few reasons. One, it's hard to mine and it's expensive to mine. And so when they realized that they could use palladium in lieu of platinum, and palladium's easier to mine and more accessible, they started to switch. And so they moved from using platinum and catalytic converters to palladium. And so you saw the price of palladium really skyrocket, and, they really were interchangeable. So, platinum been sitting in the $900 range for many years, hadn't really moved. But you started to catch some winds that it was going to start to catch up. I mean, there's mining companies that just got out of the business last, 5 years.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's now becoming more of a metal that they want for catalytic converters. There's more demand for it in other industries. So we saw it really start to take off in end of December, early January. And at one point, its peak about 30 days ago was up 50% this year, platinum. So,
that's big.
Yeah, it was big. 28% gain was just in 1 month. That was just in June alone.
That's a big move. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, you don't see it on the news. You don't see anybody talking about it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because if you think about, platinum's holdings in the world and how little there is, if you look at, one interesting thing that I always think about is that there's enough gold in the world to fit in 2.5 Olympic-sized swimming pools. In that same visual, there's enough platinum in the world. If you're standing in one of those pools, the platinum would just touch your toes. Wow. That's how little platinum there is.
I did not know that.
Above ground.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, so it's a metal that's not talked about enough, in my opinion, but it's got a tremendous use. And And what happened is that the main mining of platinum is in South Africa. They've really struggled financially to keep some of these mines open. A lot of them have closed, and so the mining has really shrunk there, and it's one of those situations that just, I think even now where the prices that some of these mines may break even. A lot of them went out of business and couldn't afford it.
Sure.
So that tells me as an investor that there's still room if they're going to continue to use it in industry. So I do think platinum has more of a story to tell. And I think we're at the beginning of this commodities bull super cycle. Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, I've been doing this for 16 years, and I wrote the book on silver that came out in December, and I decided to add a chapter about platinum at the end. So I have in my last 2 chapters, I have a chapter about platinum, which I dive into a lot of what I just discussed with you right now. So I don't know if I'm lucky or smart, but the price came together at the right time, and so I do discuss platinum. I have 1 chapter about platinum in my silver book, for anyone that wants to dive in and learn a little bit more than what we can discuss today. Okay.
Looks like we had you back. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I was there for a second.
I was like, yeah. We got a good internet, but I just all of a sudden we just both
cut out. Yeah, we cut out for a second.
But we're back.
Yeah. So I've watched your show a bunch. I mean, do you have questions about Noble Gold or
actually, well, but to your question about platinum, it's basically what I've been reading is that it's had, again, like what you said, the strongest performance in decades, while silver approaches 13-year highs, and we're seeing the beginning of a broader precious metal, like you spoke of, metal super cycle. You want to touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's seen what's happened with gold, right? And gold's reaction has been on a number of different levels. I think that, the first thing is what you're seeing is central banks. I mean, to make it really, we can get into the specifics of what's happened, but big picture,
right? Central
Central banks have been buying 1,000 tons of gold for the last 4 years in a row. So that's and that's never happened in the history of the world.
I read that. That's big.
Yeah. So I think that is something for people to keep in mind. And central banks of any asset are always the best buyer, because typically they're a net buyer and not a net seller, right?
Exactly.
And so,
I get it.
And they're less worried about day-to-day changes. Not to go on a tangent, but part of the reason our treasury bond market is having so many problems is that central banks are not the biggest buyers anymore of our U.S. treasury bonds. It's actually the retail buyers, and retail buyers want better returns. They want more security.
Sure.
Central banks, like, they would buy our U.S. treasury bonds for years and years, and they were the biggest holders in Japan and China and all these countries.
Sure.
And that's shifted. So having central banks buy gold and hold gold over the last 4 years and 1,000 tons is one of the biggest drivers of the price. The second biggest driver is obviously our government we're bringing in $5 trillion a year, but we're spending $7 trillion a year.
Yeah,
so it's not good. So there's a $2 million shortfall, $1 trillion shortfall.
Yeah, sure.
Every year. And so that's why
it's unsustainable.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you have investors see that around the world, and they say, like, we're insolvent. Basically, we can't cover ourselves. It's like a credit card. We just keep dipping into the credit card.
Yeah. And, you said that, I think I heard you say that you've watched my show and stuff. And interestingly enough, over this last month, I've been focusing in on some of the gold aspects of a specific country in the Middle East. As you probably know, it has to do with Iraq. And they have been purchased quite a bit of gold in the last few years. And they're still at it today and this afternoon, before we have this conversation, there's an article specifically about what exactly you just said, was central banks are buying gold, and Iraq is one of them, believe it or not. and they are talking about it as a safe haven of gold. And one of the reasons is because of their getting away from the dollar per se, not completely, but they're actually using that to have some resilience to a decline in the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as you said, though, when my experience is that when central banks buy, the commercial guys might want to get out of the way because they're the ones that drive one of the largest drivers of the market, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And so you look at, the first thing, if central banks buying,
Sure.
we have U.S. unbelievable debt, the debt that we've kind of never seen in the world. And then you look at the big paradigm shift in the idea of actually having the asset owned by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that was really interesting for me being in the gold business is that I would always get this argument that I should just people would say, I'm just going to buy GLD or I'm going to buy mining stock. I'm not going to buy the physical. Right. And, for the most part, I always felt that having the physical and owning yourself made more sense. But someone could make an argument that maybe owning the stock form is the same thing, except what happened earlier this year. Because what happened is that all these big institutional banks realized that their contracts in gold maybe didn't have enough gold. And so they started to call their contracts in. And you saw all over the news, the London Bullion Exchange, which was supposed to have a 1-to-1 ratio of the gold that people had bought contracts.
Right.
And they did it. They didn't have it.
Yeah.
And so it created this hysteria. And you even saw the European Central Bank. The European Central Bank came out with a report. I've never seen anything like it. It came out 2 months ago. And it said that it had all their analysts. It showed like when President Trump got elected, there was massive buying in contract gold, paper gold. And then in January and February, those contracts, those people wanted physical gold. And it literally said in this article that they put, which was done by 4 analysts at the European Central Bank, that they believe that if everybody went and called in their gold, it would there'd be absolutely a crash in the market because they don't have enough gold to back up these contracts, that the contracts are not backed up by real gold. And so I think this was the first time that I've been in the business that it actually sort of proved the idea that, and it's a simple idea that if you can own it by yourself and not have it in a paper form, you always should. Now, in the stock market, you can't a lot of times because you're buying Tesla, right? You can't own Tesla by yourself. You buy a fraction of it and you're buying a share.
Sure.
But in gold and silver and platinum, you can own the asset by yourself. And the European Central Bank actually said and recommended that it's safer to own the physical asset than to own GLD or the derivative.
Or SLV, for instance, in silver's case.
Correct. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Back to my point when I was talking about gold and silver being money, of course, at $400. But if you think about what you said, almost 20 years later, it says here that the gold shattered traditional investment wisdom by delivering 616% returns over the past 20 years compared to the S&P 500, 421%. And believe you me, I've had people specifically telling me, and upset with me because of the fact that they could have made more money in the stock market. And I have to look back at that, and I had to smile when I saw this article today, which is the gold's great paradigm shift. Yellow metal crushes the stock market over 20 years. Caught my eye right out the gate.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think, when you were mining gold at $400, like the other thing to keep in mind 20 years ago is like how much debt we've created over the 20 years, right?
Unbelievable amount.
And that I think plays a big part is like sometimes, of course, the price is exciting with gold, but like I think more importantly is everybody wants to keep up with the same lifestyle that they have.
Sure.
They want to be able to maybe go on vacation once a year. They want to be able to, fix the roof. They want to be able to put clothes, do all the normal things.
Right.
And if you go back every 10 years and you go back the last 150 years,
Hmm.
and you look at the price of gold, you'll see that gold has always been able to keep up with what it costs to live. And what I mean by that is, I mean,
Sure.
if you go back 100 years, and you go an ounce of gold, for instance, an ounce of gold was $20, right? 21
Sure.
bucks. $20 back then you could buy a lot with $20 100
Yeah.
years ago.
Mhm.
You could take your wife out to dinner. You could buy clothes. You could go do groceries. Like
Yeah.
you could spend like $20 back then was a lot. Now today, gold's at $3,300 an ounce.
Right.
Gold today could cover your mortgage.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's been able to keep up and in some ways outperform other things. And it's still the same ounce. So you're really it's a transfer, right? You're just transferring out of paper into a physical thing that the world needs, central banks need. And, they use gold in a lot of, say heart monitors and things
Yeah,
that.
they use it for a lot of purposes. Obviously, jewelry is a
Sure.
big demand and a store of value. I think that from what little that I can remember talking about it in the past, because I was into it, you could buy an ounce of gold, buy a good quality suit, whether it was 100 years ago or
Exactly.
even today. A good quality suit, they're probably going to be more expensive sometimes than an ounce of gold even, but nonetheless, because of supply demand and name brand, but gold holds its value, and it's kind of got a labor component. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that's the reason, platinum has, really started to take off. It's just the how to pull it out of the ground, right? It's just how do
Yeah.
you pull it out of the ground? There's a significant cost, and the less people, there's a supply and demand value there
Sure.
that you don't have with the dollar. I mean, the dollar this year has been in a tragic downfall. I mean, I love when people tell me like, "Oh, well, I'm making 4% in a savings account in the bank."
Right.
But then when I talk to them and I say, well, but the dollar this year's lost 10% of value relative to other paper currencies.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you really lost 6%, right?
Exactly.
So, these are all the things that I think is like, if the bank's paying you 4, how much are you really losing? Right. And those are the things that always,
Sure.
factor into it when I'm looking at
Sure.
investments. But at the end of the day, I think that, what's important for your audience and for people to kind of think about in today is like, we know where we are today. We know that there's a good chance the Fed's going to lower rates in September. They're saying almost a 70% chance.
What, quarter point, something like that? Is that right?
Quarter point, maybe 50. They said maybe 50 basis point, but you're right. Yeah, most likely a quarter point.
Okay.
President Trump's going to put in his own person in February next year when Powell's out of office.
Mm-hmm.
And this administration is high growth, high debt, any way you want to look at it. And in a high growth, high debt environment, what can you do to protect yourselves from that type of scenario? And so as much gold has already gone to 3,300, and people say, well, where is it at the top? Where's these things? It's like, we're putting ourselves in a position where we're going to devalue the dollar. We're going to continue to devalue the dollar. We're devaluing most things out there, but things that have a limited supply are going to do really well. Now, I think real estate has a good chance to bounce back next year. I think rates will come down a little bit. I think he's going to work on getting rates down.
Sure.
The hidden secret of this genius stablecoin bill, this crypto bill,
Sure.
is that the 1-to-1 ratio that they are requiring, some of that 1-to-1 ratio could be backed by treasury bonds, right?
Treasury bonds.
Yeah. So they're going to require the dollar and treasury bonds to back these stable coins. That's really good because at the end of the day, we need people buying our treasury bonds. That's why they did this bill. This bill was to get a whole new group of buyers buying our treasury bonds. We need these buyers. And if they can get this to happen and people buy these stable coins, it's backed by treasury bonds that are purchased, hopefully that'll bring bond rates down, 10-year bond rates down. And then we can see that 30-year mortgage start to hit, 5s, high 4s.
Sure.
Then I think you'll see real estate really start to take off again. So there's some really interesting things happening, but I think people, go ahead.
A lot of dynamics, coming into play. A lot of dynamics.
Yeah, and I think that these are important things for people to realize. Is like, we know where things are today. What's the next 2 to 3 years look like? What does that trajectory look like? The stock market's at an all-time high.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to stay there? Do people feel comfortable there? I think there's going to be some type of correction in some of the areas in the stock market there. We've seen multiples on the stock market we've never seen before. The PE ratios on a lot of these stocks, especially the Magnificent Seven, we've never seen these before, right? So where there's some value adds, where there's some opportunities in the market where an investor can do really well. And so I think gold's got some room. I think platinum's a good story, but I think really the big story is silver. I think silver's a story. I think that you can make so many different arguments as to why silver is going to continue to go up, but I'll lay out a few reasons, and I talk about it in my book.
Okay, great.
We've had a 4-year shortage of silver, just in terms of demand. This year, they say there's going to be 147 million ounce shortage of silver on the market. So that's the first reason I think the price is going to continue to go up.
Sure.
The second reason is I think that we're just seeing this spike in retail buyers. The retail market is just waking up to silver. It started moving from $29 an ounce in December. Now we're sitting around $38. The retail market's usually a little late in.
A little bit late,
Yeah, they're late into the market. So I think they're going to start to catch on to silver. The silver market's pretty small. It's much smaller than gold, much smaller than a lot of other commodities, oil. So when you have a push and you have a bull run, it can move much faster. And then historically, silver has been that kind of hyperbolic type of metal where it can go up, an unbelievable return. And we saw that happen in 2008 to 2011, where silver was sitting at $8, $9 an ounce, and it went all the way up to $50 an ounce. I'm sure you
$49, $50, $48.
It's unbelievable. Yeah,
it was.
And then the thing that I always think about with silver, for me, the thing that I hang my hat on and really feel good about silver is just where industry is going in terms of solar panels is 10% of the usage. You got energy efficient vehicles, EVs are using it. The U.S. government last year bought over $400 million in silver for drones and missiles, and that usage isn't going to go anywhere anytime soon. And then the last thing go ahead.
I'm sorry, it doesn't get replaced sometimes.
It doesn't get replaced. Yeah, they say in today's world about 5% of silver gets recycled. So
that's not very much when you're talking about the utility of all the different components around the world, whether it's computers, whether it's bombs, whether it's lasers, medical. I mean, all the different uses. It's unbelievable. One of the things I didn't. You've talked about it. I know you probably know all about it, but the gold silver ratio,
correct,
is in silver's favor at this stage. Can you talk about it? Okay.
Yeah. So it was until this last run of silver, it was above 100 to 1, which it's never 100 to 1 for very long, and it seemed to move. So now we're at like 88 to 1. Historically, silver, if you go back the last 50 years, 60 to 1 is a typical ratio.
Sure.
However, in 2011, when silver was on that big run, it hit about 30 to 1. So even if gold didn't move up $1, 30 to 1, that means, silver's a few $100s an ounce. And that would make sense, because if you look at the 1983 price of silver at $50 an ounce and you take today's dollars of like what $50 is, $50 in 1983 is like $200 today.
Sure.
So I'm looking at a $200 price tag of silver over the next 5 to 7 years. That's the number that I'm sort of looking at.
That's big.
It would be a big push, but I think there's evidence out there that silver could get to those numbers. And I think that at $38, still below its all-time high, pretty substantially below its all-time high.
Yeah, $10 an ounce, call it real close.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a bargain.
I think I don't disagree with you on that.
Yeah,
I've never really thought about it being at so, let's say that lofty price, but it wouldn't surprise me because times have changed. I think my view on it back 10, 20 years ago was somewhere, pushing 100. That's where my
sure.
head was at, But
Absolutely.
look at that, as I think you have the ability and probably know about technical analysis, and I'm not a professional, so I'm just saying, I think some of the most beautiful charts out there for technical analysis, one of them's gold. It's a phenomenal chart at a 30 to 40 year period.
Mm-hmm.
If you know how to read stock charts, you just kind of go, oh my Lord, it's that big. And probably silver, I haven't done it in a little while, probably has a really similar component to it in the trends because they do kind of follow each other tandemly.
Yeah, that's a great point. I do a live stream on my channel every week, and just as last week we did the silver cup and handle chart actually.
Yeah.
And so the cup and handle is actually, if you go to 50 years, if you look at it over 50 years, you can see that the handle is right below where the takeoff point is.
Yeah.
And that takeoff point is about $40 an ounce. That's the kind of takeoff. So, you have the kind of ups and downs, and you have that, that 2011 where it came back down, and now we're moving back up. And so, yeah, on the technical charts, which, a lot of people.
So what you just told me is that when it breaches 40, let's call it $50, it's in uncharted territory.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that, because it's a smaller market, you will have some volatility up and down. I mean,
sure.
I've seen silver go up $2, and I've seen it drop down $1.50, in a day. So those things could happen. So if you're a little faint of heart, maybe don't look at the charts every day.
But my understanding is if you used it, patterns, as you well know, can be very small, but they still make the same sort of patterns in time. But when you go out 10, 20, and 30 years, and you even said 40 or 50, but you can see the history because markets are emotional, and you can see that there is a lot of emotion in markets, and it's almost like you can take news articles and layer them in specific timeframes, and you understand why it went up and you understand why it went down. It's a little bit of hindsight, but when you see those same patterns and you see some news, and you can start to get the cogs moving. And I hope people that will take a little time and probably watch your channel, because it's important to have fundamentals, of course. I think that's what you're all about with gold, and we'll get into that. Maybe that's how you can help people with some of the products that you have, because you can have physical metal, and you can have I think you offer IRAs and with gold and et cetera, and potentially, if I'm not wrong, I think maybe even some crypto things that you can do. But I'll let you tell us. So if they have some.
Yeah, Noble Gold Investments was founded on the idea of giving people a lot of education on the physical side, on the physical metals. Mm-hmm. We do have a sister company called My Digital Money where we can do crypto. We can do it in your IRA also. But yeah, we really believe in alternative investments. And, when I started in the gold business 16 years ago, it was a little bit of people thought that I had like a tinfoil hat type of situation. I was like living out on the range.
Yeah.
And they thought I was, out to pasture, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I think it's changed a lot. And I think people realize now that, similar to why I partner with people like you that have an influence and study things, is that most of the mainstream media has an agenda, and most of the news in terms of Fox, CNN, all of them, they are funded by mutual fund companies and the stock market. So they inherently have a reason that these shows are going to focus exclusively on those ideas, because that's who's funding those shows. At the end of the day, whereas a show like yours, you're not funded by NASDAQ. You do the show because you have a voice that you want to believe in, and you partner with people that you believe in. Yeah. And so that's what I've found about independent people that have an influence is that they pick and choose who they believe in and want to believe in. And, everybody needs sponsors but they have the ability to pick and choose companies that they like.
Yeah.
And so I've had a lot of, long relationships with people that are doing the independent news. And when you realize today, people, I think, are realizing that, like, once they pulled the plug 4 or 5 years ago, they didn't have to have TV the way that they used to. They realized that they were getting better information from independent sources. They weren't trusting, the main Fox and, CNN and all these, NBC and all these things. And that's why I've seen a lot of the traditional news sort of fall away, because people just don't rely on those sources, and they realize a lot of the stories are put in by those specific groups that are pushing the agenda there. And so I think it's an interesting time now where people are using so many different sources to get information. They're cross-checking it off different things, and they're able to come to their own opinion about what's best.
A lot of us, as you probably know, and you yourself, we get tested, on what we say. And if we're consistent, and we believe in something, and we have a passion for it, because of the truth that comes with it, that it's real. Investment is real, and gold is real, silver is real, and so is other investments. Even my channel, Militia Man and Crew, I've spent decades, because I did my research. I do understand the marketplace, and that's what I did with gold back in '94 till the crash of 2008. And so, being in real estate and having an influence in a lot of different things, that I think we have some similarities. We understand that honesty, integrity is really a key component, and people will find that in you over time. And that's where you're coming from, I believe, is when you're talking about us private folks out here. We believe in something, we stick with it, and that's why we share. And that's why I'm proud to have a sponsor with it is something I believe in, which is gold and silver, and even crypto. I do believe in the new technologies. I believe in that. So.
Yeah, alternative investments have really, I think, come to the forefront. And I think, sometimes people overcomplicate things.
Sure.
I think that's the thing that I find so much when people ask me about investments, is that they see something that seems flashy. I remember during COVID, it was like people were telling me that I should buy watches as an investment. They were telling me I should buy, whiskey as an investment, or fractional paintings, or Nike shoes. And these markets were just created out of people having a lot of time and spending a lot of time on YouTube. And I think when they do the research, sometimes it's just easier to just understand that, like, the math for gold and silver and platinum, the math and the charts are on our side.
Sure.
And there are going to be ups and downs in these things, but over the long term, these are things that people need to survive. They need, silver is using a lot. Gold is using heart monitors, all these things they need. And so I do think making it simple, and that's why we have guides for gold. When you contact us, we have guides for platinum, we have guides for silver, and we break down, what we're talking about briefly today into a little bit more information, so you can really dive in. And then the other thing that we've done at Noble Gold that I really pride myself on is actually customer service. We pick up the phone. People call us.
Excellent.
They buy physical metals from us. It's not like buying it from an online company. Like, you get a real person. They have a team that helps you. If we ship it to you, we call you, we send you your tracking number. If we do an IRA, we do the paperwork with you. Like, we're old school in that way, that we believe in the service aspect of it. And we'll always do it that way. That's how we built the business. And I think that resonates with a lot of people. People want, like, some service back, like how it used to be.
Sure.
And if you're making a purchase like gold and silver, and it could be a lot of money, you should be able to get a call and have somebody that you can pick up the phone and talk to. And that's really how we built the business. And the reviews are out there. People can read about us. I'm sure you read through a lot of them.
Yep.
That's how we built it. And it's for people that want that extra level, that white glove service. That's really what we're about.
Awesome. Well, I wish you guys the best, and I think I'm hoping we'll have a good symbiotic relationship moving forward still, because I'm
Absolutely
totally interested in gold and silver, and I'm going to be curious to read your Silver is the New Oil. So,
yes, thank you. Yeah, you can contact us. Anyone that wants the book, you can get a copy of the book. It's on Amazon too.
Sure.
But thank you for having me on. If anybody's interested, call Noble Gold Investments, talk to our team, and we'll get you out some good information.
Excellent. Then we'll be in touch, and I hope everybody enjoyed this show with Militia Man and Crew. Collin Plume, CEO, President of noblegoldinvestments.com. You guys check it out.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Talk to you. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content, subscribe to the channel, or join us at the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much appreciated. Thank you so much, and have a great day.